inside the main pump like that, and we're going to attach it to the side of the main pump with a cable tie, which is provided in the kit. So we'll just put a cable tie around it here to hold it to the pump. Okay, and that's about all you need to do really. And the idea of that is that this 90-degree fitting here will once again spray the water out over the surface and cause the water to be aerated or oxygenated should the mains power go off. Once again, we'll run this lead to wherever it's suitable to you. If you want to extend it and go up over there to some other place, or if you want to come neatly over the side to a battery pack down beside your tank, that would be a good idea as well. This is our backup power fail switch. Inside this switch is a little special little relay in here that senses the 240 volts or mains power, and this simply plugs into the nearest power point, and that acts as a sensor, and that keeps the relay in its right position. Should the power go off, should the mains power go off, instantly it will switch the battery on, and this is the other two leads. This lead goes to your battery, and as you can see we already provide the marine quality battery clamps to go onto your battery. And what you need to purchase is a good quality car battery, a four-wheel drive battery, or if you want to spend the money, go to a battery that is a long life battery, that is a deep cycle battery. And then on this end of the leads, the little fittings provided that you'll clamp on to the wire that comes from the pump that's resident inside the tank. So that's the basis of the backup system. An absolute necessity when you've got fish, because if fish go without air for any length of time, they will die. It's as simple as that. So they must have air into the water to provide oxygen. You must have dissolved oxygen in the water in plenty of supply, and this is what this will ensure will happen. I just want to show you how to connect up the 12-volt backup pump to the fail-safe switch and the battery power supply. We provide these little connectors here, which are high-grade connectors, and you'll need a Phillips head screwdriver, and you just loosen that off because they come tightened on. We just loosen it off sufficiently so that we can get it off. And then we get the red wire from the pump, from the 12-volt backup pump, and we put the two wires together. The two red wires must go together, and then we put this device back on again and get the wires to go right to the back of it. Just need to loosen that a little bit more. Okay, get the wires to go right to the back of it like that, and then tighten up the screw. Not over tight, but just nice and firm so that the wires can't come out. There we go. Now we'll do the same with the black wire. The black wire is negative and the red wire is positive. We must never get them mixed up. They must always stay red to red and black to black. Once again, nice and neatly, just twitch them together. If you've got soft hands, you might have to have a pair of gloves while you're doing this perhaps, and then just tighten it up nice and tight, not over tight, just firmly like that. Now we've got a beautiful join that is electrically sound, and it's also insulated, and it's safe. Mind you, it's only carrying 12 volts of DC current, so no one could get electrocuted with that, but it's still safe and it's still sound, and that's the main thing. And then of course we want to run our wires away from the grow bed and from the tank, and perhaps you might like to use one of the cable ties that's provided just to hold it to there nice and neatly, and then you run it away to your battery and connect up to your battery. And remember to plug this into your 240 volt source, or your mains power source, the same as your pump, and your system is ready to go. What will happen with that is, if the mains power goes off at any time, the backup switch will sense that, and it will immediately turn on the 12 volt backup pump to spray water over the top of the fish tank water. You'll notice that we will need at least 3 mains power points in order to run our system. So if you're getting your electrician to come in prior to the kit arriving to install some power points nearby, make sure you get at least 3, and I'd advise you to get 4, because you may want an extra one later on in winter time to run an aquarium heater to heat the water. So you need at least 4 power points is what I'd advise you to have. Our water pump only takes 30 watts, our aerator only takes 5 or 6 watts, and our failover switch actually draws nothing. It's just a sensor that senses what's going on. Later on, if you were to add an aquarium heater for winter time, that could be 300 or 400 watt load. So even then the load is not very high. So a power board is quite suitable if you only have one power point, but it would be ideal to have 4 power points. We'll now install the auto siphon device, and there are several parts to the auto siphon device. This of course is the part that goes through the tank. We refer to this as the upstand, and I'll show you in a few moments how we'll install that. This part is the bell of the bell siphon inside, and this part is the outer surround, which is drilled to allow water to pass through, and that keeps the media, the stones or the gravel, away from the bell device. And we'll now proceed to put this together, and I'll show you how it works. First of all, we'll undo the nut here. You'll see it comes with a couple of washers, but I don't entirely trust the washers personally. We'll use that one on the inside, and on the outside I'll dispense with this rubber washer, and I'll use some of the good old trusty Sikaflex again. Put a bead of Sikaflex around it so we don't have any leaks. So we'll just run a bead of Sikaflex around like that, so that when we tighten the nut up we'll get a good seal. So I'll have to reach under here now and screw that on. Once again, because we're using some Sikaflex on it, or some good marine grade silicone, we only need to do it hand tight, just slightly tighter than hand tight. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be, you know, really screwed on in big measure. Then of course we'll then screw our upstand actually into the tank fitting. I'll just show you how that goes in. As you can see, it's just a threaded end and goes into this threaded part of the thing. We don't need to put any sealing tape on it or anything like that, because it doesn't matter if it does actually leak a little bit through, it doesn't matter. So we'll just screw that down once again, hand tight, no tighter than hand tight, because you may want to get it out one day for cleaning, and if it's too tight you won't be able to get it out. So that's just hand tight. The next thing that would go on top of here is the bell, and this actually creates the siphon, and that just simply sits on top like that. You can see we've got some slots cut in it, and we've also got a little tube here. The way it works is that when the tank fills up with water and starts to flow over the top, because this is over the top of it, it will create a suction, and what will happen is then the water will be sucked up through these slots, up through the bell and down through the pipe to the fish tank below. And it will do that until the water level reaches the bottom of this pipe, and when it reaches the bottom of this pipe, air will be sucked through this pipe into the top of the bell, which will break the siphon, and so the cycle will cease. Okay, so that sits in there like that. Our surround goes around the top of it, and you see we've got a screw-on cap to protect the whole thing and stop rubbish getting inside. Now the last thing we need to do is fit this little device on the bottom, which is just simply an outlet pipe and we have that loose and not glued, so that we can adjust it a little bit to get the flow right. So I'll just screw that on, and once again it only needs to be hand tight. It doesn't need to be screwed on with any great force. We'll just put this fitting on the end of it so we can adjust that a little bit later on up and down to get our flow right. Okay, the next job now is to put the gravel into the grow bed, and we've chosen to use very nice expanded clay beads for our gravel because it's just so nice to use, and secondly it's convenient for people that live in home units or in city places that want to have a balcony kit, because they simply can't go to the gravel shop and buy gravel, and so we provide this wonderful stuff. We need to make sure that there's no of these lovely clay beads inside the bell siphon chamber, because if there are, they may block it up at a later time when the water starts to flow. So when you get to about this stage, just make sure that you've got nothing in the way, and there's no glass beads, no clay beads in the area. You can see they're like marbles, they like to be where they're not supposed to be. So we'll put this back on now. We've made sure they're all free and out of the way. Now a little trick that I try and tell people this is, get a house brick and put it on top of there at this time to make sure that stays down. And there's another good reason for that, because when you start to cycle the system and water is going through it, initially these lovely clay beads, they try and float until a few days it takes for them to soak up some water and not float up and down with the water level. So we've got a house brick here, we'll just put on it. We only need to leave that there for 3 or 4 days just to make sure that doesn't move. We'll now continue to put our clay beads into the bed.